Welcome back to talknorth.com. Our special for our listeners this week, go to bitesquad.com or the Bite Squad app, enter WILD 2018. WILD 2018, all caps, WILD 2018. You'll get 10% off your Bite Squad order this weekend only, Friday through Sunday. We're really targeting the Wilds games this weekend and the Vikings at Bears game. So order a lot of food, you get 10% off. The more you order, the more you get off. Thanks to bitesquad.com, and thanks to our listeners for helping us out with this one.
Yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
I think you need a new nickname. If the new Twins pitching coach is the Czar of Velocity, would that make you the Czar of Verbosity?
Yes, the Czar of Verbosity.
Wow, I think we have it. How about that? Wes Johnson is the new Twins pitching coach. And by the way, we haven't done a show in a couple of weeks, so we're also going to talk about the Joe Mauer retirement, which was not surprising, and yet when it happens, it still has an impact on you, and it was still very interesting to see the way Joe handled it during his final press conference. Let's start with the news of the day here. This is Roy Smalley's Chin Music. This is our baseball show on talknorth.com. Thanks to our sponsors, berrycoffee.com. They can serve, handling coffee service and beverage service and all kinds of other things for any restaurant, any business, any small business that wants those things. Also, Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, Hoaglund. And please download before you listen. It's a better listening experience. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. And if you'd like to advertise with the program, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Across the network, last month we had about 145,000 listens, so things are still growing. Good time to jump on board with us. So we'll talk about Mauer here in a second, but Wes Johnson, it does show that this front office, for better or for worse, is going to think. They're not just going to think outside the box. They're going to invent their own box to think outside of. They hire a guy who was at Dallas Baptist, got a bunch of kids drafted, went to Mississippi State, got a bunch of kids drafted, went to Arkansas, helped elevate that program to the College World Series, got a bunch of kids drafted, and he is called the Czar of Velocity because between analytics and mechanical analysis, he seems to be able to increase the velocity of every pitcher on his staff.
Well, that's an incredible attribute. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do at the big league level. Of course, velocity isn't everything,
right?
And so the question is, well, let's back up. First of all, I think the new box outside of which the front office is thinking with this hire shows that they're going to try to affect positive change down through the entire organization.
Yep.
So I think this is they're very mechanics driven from a pitcher standpoint. I think especially Derek Falvey coming from Cleveland, where they had some real success with the starting pitchers over there coming out of the minor leagues. I think that his firm belief is that with the right kind of coaching, you can develop, pitching from the minor leagues. You can draft and develop great pitching, which obviously is, I mean, that's the brass ring, right? I mean, that's what everybody would be hopeful of being able to do. So I think this hire probably has a lot to do with that whole process. As far as you think about the attributes of a pitching coach in the big leagues, and I mean, Wes may be a wonderful guy. I don't know him. He may be as good. He may be the czar of relationships as well. I mean, you don't know. But it's interesting that the view about hiring Rocco Baldelli was what a great relationship guy he will be as a manager. So I'm assuming that they they think that the pitching coach is going to be a relationship guy too. So velocity is one thing. You think about a pitching coach's impact on a staff. Relationship has a lot to do with it. What a pitching coach can affect in terms of a pitcher's mental outlook and psychological outlook. All of that, all that stuff plays in. But for sheer stuff standpoint, more velocity is always better than less velocity. So I get that. He's also going to he's going to have to be able to get to pitchers in terms of what are their best pitches, velocity or not, and can you throw them for strikes when you need to? And you can take a guy, if you can take a guy from 91 to 94, that's a good thing. If you can't throw it where you want, it doesn't matter. So it's a complicated process. So best of luck to Wes and the front office for hiring him. We'll see what kinds of impact he can have.
What's interesting too is that I think we've seen velocity become a huge point of emphasis for most major league franchises. At the same time, we've seen a struggle to keep pitchers healthy. And we don't know exactly if it's 100% correlation or if it's somewhat correlated or whatever. But I know, one of the conversations I've had with Derek Falvey one-on-one, he said, keeping players healthy is going to be the next Moneyball. It's going to be the next development where somebody gets out ahead of the pack and really benefits. And so that'll be really interesting. Can he increase velocity throughout an entire organization and keep people healthy?
Well, it would seem to me that if he's increasing velocity, he's making mechanical changes. And it would seem to me that those mechanical changes almost by definition would have to be positive rather than negative.
Right.
In terms of
efficiency.
The efficiency of the motion translating into taking stress off the shoulder and elbow as best you can. So it would make sense to me that the proper mechanic, being taught proper mechanics, would affect that. So in a positive way. So I think that's good. Whether or not, if you take the pitchers that are going to be in the big leagues with the Twins in 2019, and you go to spring training with a new pitching coach, and he says, "No, son, those mechanics will never work. And in 6 weeks of spring training, we're gonna have you throwing 3 miles an hour faster, but you have to completely change your delivery." That's not.
It's not going to work. They're not going to revamp Jose Barrios' mechanics in 6 weeks.
They could tweak a little bit, and I actually think that's a great. He's a great example. Barrios is a great example. I actually think that little things are possible. Little mechanical changes would be possible with Barrios to get him a little more velocity and keep him healthy. I think I look at that particular delivery, and I don't see an awful lot wrong with that. There are a couple little things that he tends to do that I think someone coming in new and a new manager could get to Jose and say, and get him to change a couple things, and it would be beneficial. There aren't a lot of guys that I think are like that, but so we'll see. We'll see what kind of, how drastic the mechanics changes would be. I'm fascinated. I'd love to see. I'd love to see that work. I'd love to see him take a guy that. That throws. Trevor May, consistently 94 miles an hour. I'd love to see the new pitching coach take him to 97. I'd love to see that. It'd be really cool. So I'm all in if it, if it works. I'm all in.
The interesting thing too is, and you and I have talked about this before. It really does feel like, and so many general managers, coaches, whatever, come into a new job and talk about the long haul and slow build and all those things. And a lot of them either don't have the patience or they don't have the opportunity to execute the long plan.
Right.
It really does feel like everything they're doing is based on trying to, and they say it out loud all the time. St. Peter says it all the time. Falvey says it all the time. Levine says it all the time. We hear it from so many people, we tend not to always believe it. But it does really feel like everything they're doing is based on a 5 to 10 year plan, not just trying to win next year.
No question that's the case. They're not trying to win next year. They would love to win next year, but they're not setting anything up that they're doing here, the change they're making in order to necessarily win next year. And you're right that they one thing that I have to give them a lot of credit for. They are consistent in heading toward that long range goal. Everything that they've done so far has been. It's clear that it's been with where are we going to be in 4 or 5 years. And again, that we'll see what kind of patience everybody has and how that plan translates into wins and losses, during the course of the season, and therefore fan attendance, right, and enthusiasm for the Twins. You can only have the long view for so long if you're losing. And Houston lost, but on the flip side, and it really just depends on how much pain they can take economically, financially, because Houston, lost all their fan base, and they got them all back, right? I mean, there's nothing like going to a World Series and winning 2 years in a row. So it's doable. It just it's a no pain, no gain sort of situation, and I applaud. I mean, like we've said on this in this conversation many times, we won't know probably for 3 years, 2 years, whether the plan will work. But I don't think the plan's a wrong one at all. I would love to see the same kind of pitching mechanics being taught up and down the system. I would love to see the same kind of hitting mechanics being taught up and down the system, the basic hitting mechanics, all of those. I'd love to see a staff up and down the system on the same page in terms of developing winning mindset player, all those kinds of things. So, and in the meantime, you got to play a big league season and try to win some games.
Right. Let's thank Berry Coffee, berrycoffee.com. Steve Brem has become a friend of ours. Well, he's always been a friend of Roy's. We appreciate him sponsoring the program. And we talk about many of their products. I also want to remind you that if you were a small business, a large business, a restaurant, a bar, that they can sell you a lot of great equipment as well. They have coffee brewing equipment, espresso and cappuccino makers, food service, single serve, water filtration services. They have Curtis Airpot systems, double Airpot brewers, Curtis Thermo Pro Singles. I could list them all, but you can also go to berrycoffee.com and check out the category under equipment, and you can find out all the ways that they can benefit you. And as Roy says, basically every restaurant and small business should be working with Berry Coffee. If you're not, time to fix that.
I was just with Steve yesterday, and their custom bean roasting process business is just absolutely booming. The new roaster has arrived there, so we'll go out and see that in a few weeks.
Good.
But I didn't realize that their biggest market for the bean to cup process, their own fresh roasted beans done here locally with now 2 roasting plants, and the bean to cup coffee makers in corporations is one of their largest businesses. And I didn't realize that so many corporations are saying, yeah, we want that for our employees. I'm drinking a bean to cup bull run coffee this morning as we speak, and as we've talked about how wonderful it is. Corporations are recognizing that too. Their employees, they just love it. They set up these beverage stations in the office, and people are coming in and putting their cup underneath the machine and hitting the button, and the beans are ground, and the fresh cup of coffee comes out. And so I think that's certainly the trend now. Any corporation that's not availing themselves for their employees on that ought to call Berry Coffee.
berrycoffee.com, easy place to check out all of their products. Again, we appreciate their sponsorship. So Joe Mauer officially announces his retirement. Your general thoughts about that?
Well, good for Joe. I think that's absolutely the right decision for him, all things considered. And so what should be considered? I mean, why would I have that opinion? Why does it matter what I think? I mean, if it's Joe's decision, it's the right, the one that he came to, it's the right one. But I'll give you some of the factors that I think went into that and into the decision. and why I think it was such a no-brainer. First of all, he's had a wonderful